Thank you so much, Rabbi Mark. And I just want to say kol hakavod to you and toda rabah for all of the effort and energy and heart you pour into the daily sit. So it's because of you that we're here. Thank you. And as Rabbi Mark mentioned, I'm joining this sacred communal space from Washington, D.C. And I thought we could just begin by sharing in a Hineni Hinenu moment together, meaning here I am and here we are. This choice to be together in this profound way, mipnei darchei shalom, for the sake of the ways of peace. And so if you'd like to, you might rest a hand on your heart or belly or both. Maybe closing the eyes or softening your gaze or turning inward in whatever way resonates with you. And giving yourself a chance to keep arriving here in this kahila, in this community, where each of our presence matters, where by showing up as we are with whatever we may be holding or bringing or carrying, we're gifting each other a chance to rest, connect, process, and be. You might take a moment to just extend a sense of gratitude to yourself and also to each of us here. Feel free to keep your eyes closed if they're closed, or shift your gaze. Yesterday, here at the IJS Daily Sit, Rabbi Shuli Passau prayed for peace. And she also offered a beautiful dvar, a commentary on this week's Parsha or Torah portion. And then Shuli posed an important question that I keep coming back to. How do we practice in the face of uncertainty? How do we practice as we seek out menucha, meaning rest or peace, quiet, tranquility in ourselves and in the world, internally and externally? So the poet Yehuda Amichai, he offers a heartfelt response to Shuli's question and really illuminates this internal external connection in his poem that some of you may be familiar with, May I Rest in Peace, which was translated into English by Hannah Block and Hannah Kronfeld. I'll read it twice. May I rest in peace. I, who am still living, say, may I have peace in the rest of my life. I want peace right now while I'm still alive. I don't want to wait like that pious man who wished for one leg of the golden chair of paradise. I want a four-legged chair right here, a plain wooden chair. I want the rest of my peace now. I have lived out my life in wars of every kind, battles without and battles within, close combat, face to face. The face is always my own, my lover face, my enemy face. Wars with the old weapons, sticks and stones, blunt axe, words, dull ripping knife, love and hate. And wars with newfangled weapons, machine gun, missile, words, landmines exploding, love and hate. I don't want to fulfill my parents' prophecy that life is war. I want peace with all my body, and all my soul. Rest me in peace. May I rest in peace. I, who am still living, say, may I have peace in the rest of my life. I want peace right now while I'm still alive. I don't want to wait like that pious man who wished for one leg of the golden chair of paradise. I want a four-legged chair right here, a plain wooden chair. I want the rest of my peace now. I have lived out my life in wars of every kind, battles without and within, close combat, face to face. The face is always my own, my lover face, my enemy face. Wars with the old weapons, sticks and stones, blunt axe, words, dull ripping knife, love and hate. Wars with newfangled weapons, machine gun, missile, words, landmines exploding, love and hate. I don't want to fulfill my parents' prophecy that life is war. I want peace with all my body and all my soul. Rest me in peace. So, speaking of parents, I discussed this poem with my father, David, and he's a poetry lover like me. And after listening to it, because I read it aloud to him, he said very simply, "Allie, this poem is a prayer." And it is. It's a prayer that understands on such a visceral level that what we perceive as inner and what we perceive as outer, they're inextricably connected. And that it's critical for us to clarify our kavanot, our intentions, about how we want to energetically orient towards the mysterious sacred gift that is life, life in us and life around us. And this is much of why we meditate. We meditate to plant seeds of kavanot deep within. Kavanot such as, I want peace with all my body and all my soul. And then we make a commitment to tend to these seeds with moment-to-moment awareness, with the tenderness of compassion, and with a fiercely loving courage that keeps asking, what if there is another way? And what if that way begins balev, in the heart? So let's move into a practice that starts with a few minutes of grounding and then invites us to tap into individually and collectively our innermost kavanot. One thing I'll say as we get started is that if at any point there's a sense of, oh, something is arising that's beyond my range of resilience or window of tolerance, to just tend to yourself with care. You might open your eyes if they're closed, take a sip of water, shake things out, and just really inviting in a depth of compassion and self-compassion in each moment of practice. So finding your way to whatever posture your body wants to be in for the next 15 minutes or so. A posture that's both dignified and also relaxed, that's wakeful and alert. And depending on your body, this posture might be seated, it might be lying down, it might be standing. Feeling free to rest your gaze, close your eyes, or as I invited earlier, turn inward in whatever way makes sense for you. Again, as we can never sense into it enough. Hinenu, here we are. Hinenu, here we are, supporting each other in practice and prayer. And practice is this act of compassionate, courageous care for yourself, for each of us. So honoring the choice to be here. And perhaps scanning your body gently with awareness from the top of your head all the way down to the soles of your feet. Letting gravity do its work and attuning to where your body is connected to a surface behind you or beneath you, to the floor, to the earth. Letting things be as they are. Honoring the presence of any thoughts or emotions that may be visiting, allowing them to be illuminated in the light of awareness. Nothing to fix or change, nothing to make happen. Choosing to rest in the midst of an ever-changing flow of experience. And if at any point it feels supportive to rest a hand on the heart or belly or both, for a moment or longer, just listening to your own intuition. This caring awareness that can meet life's unfolding moment by moment and breath by breath. And you might drop in the inquiry, why do I choose to meditate? Or why am I here today? And there's no need to search for anything. There's no need to fabricate a response. Dropping it in, and with the depth of attention and care, simply receiving whatever arises in response. A felt sense, a word, an intuitive knowing. Why do I choose to meditate? Why am I here today? You might experiment with dropping it in again and seeing if another layer of the onion reveals itself. What we're doing is bringing the depth of our kavanot, the depth of our intentions, above the line of awareness. And if you sense your why somewhere in your body, you might rest a hand there, giving your why a chance to imprint. Or you might encapsulate your why in a word or phrase and gently, for a moment or longer, repeat it to yourself. So much of what keeps us going on this path of compassion and wisdom is knowing our why and also listening for its evolution. So, what would it be like to keep your why as an anchor, as a home base that you can return to as attention ebbs and flows? And so, we're going to practice in quiet together for the next few minutes. And when your attention inevitably wanders, that's just the nature of the mind. Maybe taking a snapshot of where it wandered off to. That can be interesting data. And then returning to resting your attention, to paying attention, to placing your heart, Simu Lev, on your why for practice, your why for being here. feel free to continue returning to your kavanah or your kavanot. Or if you'd like to, for the last few minutes of this period of practice, you might let that go and simply rest in a more open awareness. Resting in body, resting in breath. Resting in the tender, beautiful, yearning-filled experience of being human. I want peace with all my body and all my soul. Rest me in peace. May our practice together today across time zones and life experiences, may it support us in connecting to the power of kavanah and the power of yearning for peace. Thank you so much for your practice.
Thank you so much, Alison Cohen, for leading us again so beautifully today. And we seal that practice as we do each day by offering an opportunity for those of you who are in mourning, observing a yard site. If it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, you're invited to do so. If you're not reciting Kaddish, we encourage you to please stay present to support those who are. You could put the name or names of those you're honoring today in the chat now or after you recite Kaddish. Thanks to Rachel for sharing the words of the mourner's Kaddish on the screen. And if you're joining me, you can please rise in body or in spirit and unmute at this time. Yitkadal.
Gadali Gadash Shamerava Yalmadi Varaki Vakevi Amrit Makute Haye Hom Yume Haye Holy Israel Allah Vizman Kari
Agala Vizman
Mero
Kari
Shalama Rava
Shme Rabam Barach Olam Ulame Hamaya Yitbarach
Shme Rabama Baraki
Ar
Olama Melma
Yitse
Kitatu
Yitkadar
Mami
Yitaleb Yitalal Shme
Riga Levit
Shah
Allah Sabri
Elam Yukol
Elam
Shah
clear Kavashirta
Tushbachata
Tapatata
Nechamata
Venechamata Amiron Biamati Maru Amen.
Hey Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya,
Hey
Hayi
Salama Raba
Nami,
Min
Yako
Shemaya.
Yisrael,
Inu
Amen.
Yoko Israel.
Aseh Shalom
Yimro Amen.
Birama,
Asay Shalom
Shalom
Ruma.
Aleinu,
Ya Asay
Ko Yisrael,
Aleinu Yoko Israel.
Amen.
Apoyo Tevel.
Imru.
Imru Amen.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you're leaving us now, hope you'll join us tomorrow. We'll be led in practice tomorrow by Emily Hertzlin of Malchut community in Queens, New York. And on Friday, Yael Shai will be here to lead us to sit together into Shabbat. Just a reminder that we won't be meeting live on Thursday as IJS commemorates Juneteenth. We'll be closed that day. And want to thank Rachel Huga for holding our text space today. I want to thank Jim and Mary Solander for sponsoring today's practice, and much appreciation to you, Jim and Mary, for that. And as always, you're welcome to either continue just to sit with that beautiful guidance that Alison offered. You can turn off the sound on your device and use this time, use this community as a container of support for your practice, or you can join us for conversation. And if you do and would like to ask a question, you can put question in the cap. You can put your question in the chat. Please just preface it by writing question all in caps, and I'll keep an eye out and try to work your question into the conversation. Alison, thank you so much, as always. Really so grounding and so helpful, especially in these times. You know, anytime someone brings Amichai in, I'm there. So thanks for that, and thanks for that one in particular. That would be Dayenu. That would be enough right there with that poem. Part of what came up for me sitting an awareness that I had because of your guidance was how much of Jewish mindfulness meditation practice is about being willing to adopt a stance of being in a question. I think you were citing what Shuli Passau said yesterday about how do we practice in a time of uncertainty. And it struck me a little bit yesterday, but even more so today when you said that the practice is actually about practicing uncertainty, about asking a question. And then in this case, you're inviting us to kind of ask that just a basic question like, what brings you here today? Why are we here? Why are we meditating? But actually not to search for a pre-programmed answer or to remember, oh yeah, I came here for this, but actually to be open enough to see what answer arises in the body, in the mind, in the emotions, and to be with that, right? Sometimes we ask the question instead, I'm trying to remember like, oh yeah, I know there's a reason why I came here and I know it. I just need to ask the question so I can get to what I already know. But this is different. This is really about adopting a stance of openness to what is going to arise, which is really an act of surrender. And it strikes me that that's part of what is the nexus between the meditation practice and spirituality, which is, involves a little bit of a release, maybe not a little bit, a release of the ego and an openness to something beyond ourselves or deeper than ourselves. So I wanted to put that out there and see how that lands with you, or anything you want to riff on about that. Is first of all, is that accurate in terms of what you're inviting us to do with dropping into the question, which is maybe a phrase you used, but you certainly invited us to sit with the question.
Thank you so much, Mark. Yeah. The way you summarized it so beautifully resonates deeply with me, that there's this process by which we can drop in an inquiry and stay genuinely open, curious, spacious to what may arise in us from a place of innermost knowing or intuitive wisdom that reveals a great deal, and that can also support us as we continue to move forward, practice, engage in life's complexities. And that it can also be, especially in a world that tends to, in implicit and explicit ways, tell us to rush, 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 it can be interesting to be patient with inquiries like that and see if over an extended period of time we glean additional data.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, much gratitude for the way that you put it. I do want to just mention that I placed in the chat, I saw several people asked if there was a source sheet for the poem. And thankfully, this is not true of all of his poems, but this particular poem is easily accessible and available online. And so I've placed that in the chat. And yeah, just much gratitude for your interest in it. And I hope that revisiting it is supportive. And then I see there are a few other questions,
A
Mark.
lot
So
of questions about cultivating peace in a time like this. Some have to do, well, let's talk about that, about maybe say a little bit more about choosing this poem and how you understand that poem as a grounding for. There's questions about how do we, how can we experience peace in such a unpeaceful time, such a, a time of war, intense war. How do we experience, how do we wish for peace for others who are, we struggle with? How do we wish for peace for for ourselves? Even like the Mourner's Kaddish, which we end with, right? At the last line of the Mourner's Kaddish, asks for the maker of peace to offer peace for over all Israel and over all who dwell on earth, right? Which is a contemporary addition. So big question there. Question about peace.
Yeah. And I'm curious, Mark, what maker of peace means to you.
Mm. Oh.
Mhm.
Um, well, I guess I would say I think about the divine slash God. I'm comfortable using the word God as that which integrates, synthesizes, and connects all being. So when Oseh Shalom Bimramav, the one who makes shalom, and just for those who aren't familiar, the root of the Hebrew word shalom means complete. It doesn't mean peace per se. The English word is kind of a a euphemism or one way of understanding it. So wholeness, the one who makes for wholeness and connection in the world. So that's how I understand it. So when I think about praying for peace, I think about overcoming the illusion of separateness and disconnection in the world and promoting that within myself. Since you asked, how about you?
I love that, Mark. And the way that you just summarized the maker of peace and what that actually means on a embodied level makes me think of, I just want to pull it up quickly so I can place it in the chat and share it with all of you, especially because it's connected to several questions in the chat around how do we even experience, I think I saw a beautiful phrasing of a morsel of peace during this time.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of that has to do with being able to tap into the overcoming of, let me just pull it up. I'm currently attempting to multitask unsuccessfully. Um, so let me just see.
I commend
Mm.
you for that.
This is from, okay, here we go. The teacher and therapist, John Wellwood.
Mm,
I'll read it aloud as well.
thanks. Please.
Since it is the nature of human beings to live on both the absolute and relative levels, we can never reduce reality to a single dimension. We are not just this relative body-mind organism. We are also absolute being, awareness, presence, God,
Mm-hmm.
which is much larger than our bodily form or personal history. But we are also not just this larger formless absolute. We are also incarnate as particular individuals. If we identify only with form, only with this human world, only with this particular embodied experience, our life will remain confined to known familiar structures. But if we try to live only as pure emptiness or absolute being or godfulness, we may not engage with our humanity. In absolute terms, the personal self is not ultimately real. At the relative level, it must be respected.
Yeah, that last line one more time.
In absolute terms, the personal self is not ultimately real.
Mm-hmm.
At the relative level, it must be respected. And the way I think that this quote connects to what you were sharing, especially from a Jewish perspective,
Mm-hmm.
is that when the too muchness of it all on this worldly plane
Mm-hmm.
impacts our nervous systems to such an extent that it's hard to even see a way forward. that's when we're really called to offer it up to an absolute beingness that is larger than ourselves. That's when we're called to pull from, to source from, to let our hearts yearn for and shift into, in a sense, like de d'écoute.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something here about, and this is unformed in this moment and or not fully formed, that would be more accurate, but
You're
there's
doing
something
great.
here. What was that, Rabbi
You're
Mark?
doing great. Keep going.
Okay. There's something here about honoring we are not meant to figure this out on our own. We're meant to offer, and I'm making a hand motion right now of
Mm-hmm.
expanding outward and upward. We're meant to offer the too muchness to community,
Mm.
to to ancestry, to the source of life, to the maker of peace, and say, I can't do this on my own. Can you help me access a morsel of peace? Oh, peace is already here, available to us in every moment. Can we tap into that layer of reality so that it fuels our ability to find our way in relative reality?
Mm.
Can we tap into, I'm feeling it right now, the peace, the silence, the Ein Sof, the Shekhinah, that's always and already available to us, and that the human form forgets. And so we come together to practice and to pray, and most importantly, to remember.
Mm.
It's here, it's available, and may we strengthen that channel and that sense of connection so that we can access wise discernment and compassion, fierce compassion, as well as tender compassion about how to meet the moments of a world as wild as this one.
That's an extraordinary summation, Ellie. Thank you so much. Um, and as you used the word prayer, it stirred in me an awareness that that poem by Amichai is a prayer. It's "May I rest in peace." It is, as you were like describing, an offering, a recognition of something beyond, not just a kavanah or an intention there, but almost an admission of this is too much, right? I've known war in all its facets and all its forms and all its experiences, and it's too much. It's too much. So it's asking for assistance and support. Just want to quickly define a term that you used, the Hebrew term, which I think really is applicable. Use the Hebrew term dveikut, which means literally cleaving or connecting in modern Hebrew. Devek means glue. Dveikut is the term in Jewish mysticism for really being for cleaving to the divine, for having being flush with what is. Um, Sometimes people in meditation practice will use that term, being flush with the moment, flush with the breath, being fully present in the here and now. And I think what you just beautifully described is what we aspire to in our practice, in our own little small brief way each day, to try to have a moment of reconnecting in that way, and tapping into in these finite limited bodies, in this finite limited world, exactly what you said, of that there's something deeper, there's something bigger, And that enables us to be in this world with more wisdom, with more, all the qualities that our catchphrases say, more resilience, more wisdom, more courage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But without plugging into that, we're going to, that we flounder and struggle.
I'm so grateful to you for saying that and for putting it in that way, the power of on a daily basis connecting and making the choice to connect, having a kavanah to connect. And it's just really reverberating through me right now, Rabbi Mark, because maybe about a month ago, I was going through a particularly heartbreaking moment in my own life.
Mhm.
And I sat down to meditate and began to practice. And then there was this moment, this clear transmission. And I heard this message, and the message was, remember to connect with me every day. And in that moment of too muchness, of heartbreak, of, okay, here we go. Remember to connect with me every day. And may we find our way as we do that.
Amen. Amen. Hear that, everybody? And that's why we are here. Thank you. I'm so glad everyone here kind of had an opportunity to experience that gift that you offered today, Ali. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Always wonderful to have you here. And thanks, Rachel, for holding our space. And thanks to each and every one of you for showing up and supporting each other in this practice. And we hope to see you tomorrow to practice with Emily Hertzler and everyone. So many blessings for peace, for shalom. And we hope to see you soon. Take good care. Until then.